Hello and welcome back to WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm George Upper, editor-in-chief of the Western Journal. Glad you could join us today. I have two of my very special co-workers with me today. In fact, you know what? I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves because I usually do.
Wow.
I usually do all the talking.
This is
front.
new.
I know.
So which of you wants to go first?
Well, I'll let Deborah go first.
Thank
Deborah,
you very
please.
much. I'm Deborah Van Kempen. I'm an associate story editor here at the Western Journal.
And I'm Joey Chester, assignment editor at the Western Journal.
Okay, the truth is I couldn't remember either of their names, so that was just an easy way for me to get out of it. Thank you for joining us today. We're really glad that you did for WJ Live. A quick programming note. We've got some changes coming up for WJ Live. Some of those are going to be pretty much immediate, very close to immediate, some of which are going to be rolling out over the next few weeks. But in order to make these changes happen, they're going to be good things. You're going to like them. But to give us a little more bandwidth to put those things in place, beginning next week on Monday, March 22nd, WJ Live is going to go to 3 days a week. We'll be here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, same time. Nothing is changing that way. So 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, but Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So if you look for us on Tuesday or Thursday, I'm sure we'll have something entertaining for you to watch. We'll find a best of clip or something to put up there for your viewing enjoyment. But we won't be here live. It'll be WJ recorded, not WJ Live. So you're welcome to come back and see us. We'd love to have you there, but important change there. We do have other changes coming. We will announce those as they get a little closer to the rollout date, but it's good stuff. You're gonna like it. All right. So having said that, one thing I would also be remiss if I didn't throw this out there before we get going, and that is all of this month, we're inviting you to check out our partners at patriotdepot.com. Supplies for the conservative revolution, and we've got a coupon code for you, 20% off everything at patriotdepot.com. Just type in WJ Live in the coupon code field there, and you can get anything you want there for 20% off. They are, look, if you haven't been there, you need to go. It is, last time when we talked about it, I said it was like the Bed Bath Beyond of the internet. It has more things.
That's a great description.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It has more things that you don't know you need
Yes.
And
than
you
anywhere
look,
else. Then you
yes.
go and you go, how have I lived this long without this thing that holds all my Keurig cups upside down in alphabetical order or whatever it is that it does. Patriot Depot just has cool stuff. Every year, the past couple of years, I've gotten stuff there for Christmas, for relatives and friends, and it's just a fun place to go and poke around. So patriotdepot.com, don't miss that. All right. So moving right along. H.R. 1 is a travesty of a bill that is being discussed both in the House and, of course, S.R. 1, the Senate version. Just a ridiculous mess. I can't think of another word. Well, I can, but I'm not allowed to use them on air. I get yelled at by K-Kunk, our famous and fabulous producer, K-Kunk. She doesn't like it when I swear. So it's just a mess. It's just a pile of hot garbage is what this is. Ted Cruz yesterday on Fox News had a very interesting take on it in which he came up with some language that I think I'm going to start using from now on. I think we have that clip for you. Ted Cruz.
It is the single most dangerous piece of legislation before Congress. What I call H.R. 1 is the Corrupt Politicians Act. It says something. H.R. 1 was the very first bill the Pelosi Democrats took up in the House. It's the number one bill. It's not about COVID. Right. It's not about vaccinations. It's not about getting people back to work. It's not about getting kids back to school. It is about ensuring that Democrats remain in power and control for the next 100 years. It is a radical bill. What does it do? It federalizes all elections. It strikes down every election reform protection at the state level. So photo ID laws. Right now in a lot of states, you got to use photo ID to vote. The Corrupt Politician Act strikes that down. It sets up automatic voter registration, which would result in millions of illegal immigrants and criminals and felons being able to vote. The Democrats believe if illegal immigrants and felons are voting, that benefits the Democrats and keeps them in power. Not only that, it mandates universal mail-in balloting. It mandates ballot harvesting. This is all designed to facilitate fraud. It is also welfare for politicians. For every dollar they raise, they get $6 of taxpayer money. It is all about keeping Democrats in power. And the threat is to take away your right to vote by allowing millions of illegal immigrants and felons to vote. I think it is a profound threat to our democracy and to our republic.
A profound threat to our democracy and to our republic. Senator Cruz from Texas, of course, who now refers to the bill as the Corrupt Politicians Act, which I think that's great messaging. Democrats tend to be better at that messaging than Republicans do, and I think finally the Republicans have found something that will work.
Oh, yeah.
It's really good.
And I think it's important because one of the things that has been at least floated out there on the left by the Democrats in the House has been changing the name of this act,
Yeah.
so it maybe slips under the radar, so people don't realize it's HR 1 we're talking about anymore. And so to have something consistent on the right to use to label this with, I think could be helpful.
Yeah.
One of the most important things I think that Senator Cruz said here was not about what's in this bill, and I do want to get to that in a second, but he listed some things that weren't in the bill.
Yeah.
This is the very first bill taken up by the House. It's HR 1.
Yeah.
It's not about COVID relief. It's not about returning kids to school. He listed a number of things. It's not about China. It's not about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It is about elections. It is all has to do with how elections work in this country. So that just raised the question in my mind. What would you guys say should have been HR 1? What should the number one priority of Congress been this year, if not this?
It's tricky. The three things that he said are the three things that come to my mind when I think about what should have been priority number one moving into a new administration. You think about COVID and you think about getting vaccines out to people. You think about providing relief to families that have been struggling throughout the past year. And then you think about getting kids back in schools, getting people employed again after like a severe hit to unemployment. And personally, I think that what should have been prioritized was getting people back to work, because I think that is one of the biggest things that just really hit Americans hard last year. And I think that was something that the administration should have known.
It is the single most dangerous piece of legislation before Congress.
Making sure that Democrats stay in power in the future.
Joey, would you agree with that?
I would. And I think it's really telling that the first thing Democrats did was they codified, or they're attempting to codify what caused the 2020 election disaster. We saw all these governors and legislatures unilaterally change election laws in the 2020 election, basically to ensure that Joe Biden would win. I don't think the election was stolen, that votes were switched and all that, but I do believe that there were voter laws that were changed that allowed Joe Biden to win
Illegally. In
yeah,
some cases.
illegally.
Yeah.
There was just a Michigan judge just ruled that the Michigan Secretary of State broke the law with changing vote-in mail laws in the 2020 election.
Exactly.
And so Democrats, their first priority was to ensure that they stay in power forever.
Yeah.
And so we saw what's their priority. Their priority is to say Democrat elitists who don't care about Americans.
Yeah.
And where they should have been focusing on COVID, on China, and quite honestly, after the 2020 disaster, they should have been focused on fixing elections and protecting election integrity. But it's the opposite of that. They do not care.
Yeah, so I'm going to break with both of you just a little bit because I think the Democrats came closer here to getting this right than they know. Because there's one part of this that I could get behind if they tweaked it a little bit, and that is the $6 donation for every dollar they raise. Now, I am totally fine with that as long as what they're talking about is $6 to me for every dollar I make. That should have been Congress's number one priority, is giving me a six-fold raise out of the federal coffers. I think that I could have gotten behind.
That would have been great.
Yeah, I would have given some money back in terms of political contributions.
Sure.
That would have been. That's how that works, right?
Yes.
The government gives you stuff, and you then donate to politicians so they can get reelected and give you more stuff. I think that's how that grift works. So, I would have been totally on board with that. Did anyone call me and ask? No. I didn't get a single phone call, not an email. It was very disappointing. So flip side of that question. So I asked what Congress should have been doing instead of this. Let me ask the other side of that. What's the most egregious part of this bill? What's the most ridiculous thing? If you had the ability to just pluck one thing out of the bill and say, you know what, we're not even going to vote on that. That's too stupid. What would you pick?
I think that kind of opening up the window for more mail-in voting is just a recipe for disaster.
Sure.
And that is the biggest thing that I think is the issue with this proposed legislation, because I know I was in Vegas for the 2020 election, and I remember we had polling centers where there would be an entire line
Deborah
of
is
cars.
a big gambler, so
Yes,
pretty
it's a
much any
problem. I'm
event
working
that
on
you
it.
mention, she's going to say, I was in Vegas for that.
I was
That's when
there.
you're going to hear.
I was there.
It is kind of we don't talk about it a lot. We probably will stage an intervention at some point on WJ Live, maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday next week. You're not going to want to miss that. But
It's going to be great.
yeah, it's going to be good. It should be a lot of fun. She might weep. Come back and watch. We'll see what happens.
No, but there would be entire lines of cars just all the way down streets of people lining up to hand in their ballots with no voter ID required. People would literally take the ballots out of your car window and then let you drive off. And to me, I was like, how is this possible in the United States of America, where our election laws should be so airtight that we are making sure that there is no fraud whatsoever? And I think that during the 2020 election, I mean, kind of like Joey said, like, I don't want to get into the issues of like people witness vans pulling up, like pulling out boxes of ballots or things like that. But I do think that there were issues that came to the table with how we handle elections that really need to be taken seriously. And this proposed legislation is only going to aggravate those even more.
And to Joey's point about codifying some of these things, one of the real concerns, and I think one of the things that's really led to conspiracy theories over the past 6 months, has been anytime these questions have been raised, it's always been, don't even talk about that.
Immediately shut
That's
down.
so
Can't
dumb,
talk
don't
about
even
it.
talk about that. And so now we're going to take that to the next step. We're going to codify it. So really don't talk about it. Now you're talking about violating the law. So just shut up and go, harvest your ballots. It is ridiculous. Joey, what do you think? If you could pluck one thing out of this law, what would it be?
I think it's the automatic registration to vote. It's probably, I think, was it connected to when you get your driver's license or something? So
There are a few things
Yeah.
it could be connected to, but that's the big one. Yeah.
this is, and I don't mean this in a good way, but the Democrats have been brilliant in how they've done this. Biden relaxes border policies. We see migrants flood across the border in the tens of thousands over the last few months.
Yep.
And that's going to turn into millions. All of those people could potentially be automatically registered to vote and then be illegals voting in our elections. And in a lot of states like Arizona and other swing states, 50,000 illegal immigrant voters could be enough to swing an election.
Absolutely.
And so I think that is the scariest part of this bill. I also hate the public financing part. I mean, I think it's absurd that, I could be funding Nancy Pelosi's re-election campaign with my tax dollars because you don't get to decide who it goes to. But I
know. And then I got to die and stand before Jesus and explain why I gave money to Nancy Pelosi.
Right.
It's completely unfair.
So I think that's the worst part.
My least favorite part, it might not actually be the most egregious part of it from an objective sense, but my least favorite part of it is related. It's the fact that 16 and 17-year-olds will be pre-registered to vote.
Yeah.
And there are people on the left, and a lot of them, who think that 16 and 17-year-olds should be voting anyway. They can't drink. They can't buy cigarettes.
Can't fight in the military.
car.
Right, but they should. But they should be voting. That's Anybody who thinks that is one of two things. They're either disingenuous. They're trying to manipulate election results, or they have not matured an iota from the time they were 16 years old. And they think, well, I'm just as smart today at 30 as I was then, which you probably are.
That's probably why they vote for Democrats.
Exactly. And so we should have more people as dumb and immature and inexperienced and as thoughtless as I am voting. That sounds like a good idea to me. Those are the only two explanations.
Again,
I
it's
can
the
think
stupid versus evil
of.
grift.
It's the stupid versus evil grift. It's always one of those two things. Stupid. No, I take that back. It's almost always one of those two things. It's stupid or evil, sometimes both. So, yeah. And speaking of stupid and evil, how's that for a transition? One of the worse ideas that I think some people are promulgating because of bad intentions, but others just because they don't know what they're doing, is the elimination of the act, or some sort of reduction anyway, of the filibuster in the Senate. Deborah,
Yes.
tell us about that.
Yeah, so we had Senator Elizabeth Warren, who has called the practice of filibustering within the Senate racist, saying that it has deep roots in racism and that it
Classic.
needs to be abolished.
Well, there's nobody who would know
Classic.
racism better than an American Indian.
Oh,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Pocahontas.
Yes.
Oh, no. I had completely forgotten about that when I chose this topic, and now that just makes it even better.
Yeah.
Oh, my
No,
goodness.
I'm, originally I'm from Massachusetts, so I bear some responsibility for her, I suppose, in some way or another.
Oh, no.
At least as much as I do for slavery.
Right.
I mean, apparently now we all bear
You know,
some
exactly.
Oh,
responsibility
yes.
for
Yeah,
that,
Yes.
so.
We're all responsible.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, so filibustering, as we know, is the practice of kind of prolonging a vote, delaying a vote or prolonging debate on the issue for a number of reasons. And we've seen this happen a lot of times in history. And we actually kind of saw it happen quite recently where Senator Ron Johnson wanted the entire COVID bill to be read aloud before opening up debate for it in the Senate. And so Elizabeth's argument is that, of course, this has deep roots in racism, and the Senate Historical Office actually noted that filibusters were particularly useful to Southern senators who sought to block civil rights legislation.
No.
Yeah. Southern Democrat senators.
Exactly.
Let's make sure
Exactly.
we point that out.
So I just wanted to highlight a few instances of the times when Democrats have used filibustering.
Good.
Nice.
So the longest filibuster speech ever was given by former Democratic Senator Strom Thurmond
Oh,
of South
Strom.
Carolina, who spoke for 24 hours and 18 minutes against the Civil Rights Act of 1957. And interestingly enough, President Joe Biden described this senator as one of his closest friends. Another friend of the president, we have the late Democratic Senator Robert Byrd, who...
Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
Late of the KKK.
Yes,
Yeah.
a confirmed member of
Yeah.
the KKK before he supposedly disavowed them.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yes.
He
gave-
Very
thought,
gen-
he
very
thought they
generous.
sold cookies. He thought that was the organization. He thought KKK stood for cookie. And so when he found out what they were really for, he was shocked. He was
Absolutely
shocked.
appalled.
He thought it was all about cookies.
So he gave...
He also didn't know how to spell cookies.
No.
he didn't.
It's always
He thought it was
Democrat.
okay.
Yeah.
Again,
whatever.
stupid.
Yeah,
idea.
stupid. for
stupid,
people, you know, whatever.
So he gave an exceptionally long speech of 14 hours and 13 minutes to protest, again, the Civil Rights Act, but this time of 1964. And he ended up dying in 2010, and Biden delivered a lengthy eulogy at his funeral.
yes.
So I just thought that this was a very interesting claim from a Democratic senator of a practice that has been used by Democrats very, very much in the past. And so is there any weight at all to Elizabeth Warren's claim that this practice is racist?
Is there any, I'll answer that this way. If there is any weight to that claim, then the party guilty of that has been the Democrats. I personally think that the left, the Democrats, are crazy to try to do away with the filibuster, because what that will mean is that people who, in the minority, who are seeking to keep these bills from being enacted will have to actually filibuster, right? They'll have to actually stand on the floor and speak for 24 hours, for however long that they can, to keep that from happening. What that means is that these bills will actually be read out loud, just like with the COVID-19 bill, our $1.9 trillion fiasco. That is a disaster for politicians, for career politicians. It's a disaster for the left, for Democrats. They do not want you to know what's in these bills.
Yeah. Nope.
And in a 24-hour news cycle with 24-hour news coverage and cameras on in the Senate all day long. C-SPAN will cover every word of that stuff, and all of the stuff that Nancy Pelosi literally didn't want you to know was in Obamacare, and she told you'll find out what's in the bill after we pass it.
Yeah.
Literally what she said.
Yeah.
Actually, I think she said we'll find out what's in the
Probably,
bill after we pass
yeah.
it. I literally believe
them
that.
don't know
I'd have to
Yeah,
go back.
I don't know either. Just
I'd have to go back and look, but I literally, that's what I recall her saying. She doesn't want you to know what's in the bill. Democrats
No.
don't want you to know
No.
what's in the bill. And so I think this is actually a really, really bad move
Yeah.
on the part of Elizabeth Warren and other people who are making these recommendations. I think it's going to make it actually harder for them to get this stuff through.
I think calling the filibuster racist, it's like calling farming racist because slaves in the past have worked on farms and plantations. It's
Yeah.
absurd. We've moved past these time periods where certain things have been used for egregious practices. We don't live in a time where we're using the filibuster to protest
Right.
civil rights on the
Right.
Senate floor. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, watch that guy try to run for
Yeah,
re-election,
exactly.
right?
It's just, it doesn't happen. So you have to look at the times we're living in now.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. And the other thing, the Senate exists to protect minority rights in this country, the rights of the minority. We have a House, and because of the House being based on population, it doesn't need a filibuster style thing.
Right. That's why they don't
Yeah,
have it.
it's why they don't have it. And so it is critically important. But I think this sets up, too, the chance where Democrats want to change the Senate to proportional representation
Of course.
to be elected.
Yeah.
And I think this is a preview of that. Get rid of the filibuster and then set the Senate up to be proportional representation. And then you basically have a second House of Representatives where the minority party has zero rights.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think George, your point is fantastic about how important the filibuster is because it forces these politicians to expose what's in their bills, and they don't want that.
They don't wanna do that.
They're scared of it. Obamacare being jammed through is part of why Democrats lost the House after Obamacare was rammed through.
That's right.
And so I actually think it's political. Could be political suicide for them if they abolish the filibuster. They jam through bills like HR1 without anything being read on it,
Yeah.
and then Americans find out later all these horrifying parts of the bill. So
Far be it from me
yeah.
to get in the way of Democrats committing political suicide.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's right. Well, so what do? You say, do they abolish? No, we shouldn't abolish it. But still, you got to weigh it,
There's
right?
a little bit,
Yes.
a little bit of me that's like,
A little bit. Maybe. Yeah.
well, so just a little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely excellent points. And kind of moving away from the side of what it's going to do to their party and more
Yeah.
of along the lines of why she made this comment in the first place, And so I kind of wanted to talk about why this has become the automatic response in American society today, when if we don't like something, we can point at it and say that's racist or that's
Right.
homophobic or that's bigoted. And so I just wanted to kind of ask you guys, where do you think this has come from? And, how do we kind of overcome this mindset moving forward?
Oh, all it is name calling. That's all it is. It is it is the people with the emotional maturity of 16-year-olds populating the Senate and the House. And if I don't like your idea, and I say, well, you're a bigot, I've done two things. One, I've changed the argument. So now we're not talking about the subject anymore, the object of debate. We've cut off debate. Now we're talking about you.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you try to get off of that and get back to the topic, you clearly don't want to talk about how bigoted and homophobic you are.
Yeah.
So you're essentially admitting it. Okay. Do you still beat your husband, Deborah? It's
Yeah.
that kind of question. There's
Yeah.
no good
Yeah.
answer to that question.
Right.
No, I don't still do it. Oh, but you did. I mean, that's where you get. It's the only place to go. So, I've said this a lot, and I continue to hold out hope for it, although I cannot claim to be rational in doing so. But what U.S. politics needs, particularly in the Senate, the House has always been kind of madcap, but particularly in the Senate, we need debate. We need civil discourse. We need people who can sit down and talk logically and think critically about the actual issues.
Without having to resort to straw mans.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Without
Yeah.
strawman argument, without ad hominem attacks, without all of that kind of stuff. We have some people in the Senate still capable of that. Ted Cruz, who we saw earlier, is one of them. Actually, an excellent debater. Rand Paul would be another excellent candidate for that. I cannot think of anybody on the other side of the aisle who I would hold up as an example of being really capable of that, but I freely admit to the possibility of it. And those folks need to get together and figure out how we move on from this crazy, screaming match we're constantly in, and back to civil political discourse. I don't know the path for it, but I continue to hold out hope that we can get there.
I think calling someone racist is unfortunately a really easy thing to do.
That's right.
It's a cop out,
It's lazy.
essentially. And you guys have heard the saying, you call someone crazy and they say, I'm not crazy. And you're like, well, that's what a crazy person would say. So when someone calls you racist, I'm not a racist. That's what a racist would say. When you have to start defending yourself, saying you're not something, the other side can say, oh, no, they are that.
Look how hard they're defending
Yeah,
themselves.
because they're defending themselves so much. And so
There's no real good answer to it.
it's very tactical. But I think, George, you had a great point. The point of it
That's the
is
second time he said that.
Well, it just-
about how excellent my points are. Are you paying attention?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
taking
good.
notes,
Good.
actually.
All right, that's excellent.
I want to keep my job.
Well, as soon as I remember your name, we can look into that.
They want to take the focus off of what's really at hand.
Yeah.
If they're
100%.
debating something like HR1 and they all of a sudden turn it and say Republicans are racist for not supporting this bill, well, now the conversation is no longer about the bill; it's about how Republicans are racist.
Yeah.
And the debate becomes name calling and
It's not debate anymore.
racist accusations. It's not debate. You're right. It's like you said. It's like 16-year-olds arguing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
16 is kind of a compliment.
And so we've reached this really problematic point in political culture where Democrats resort to race, and I don't think Republicans have really come up with a good way to counter that.
Yeah.
How do we counter that? I don't really know. We always say, truth and facts are how we counter the left, but it's really hard for whatever reason to defend yourself against these racism accusations.
Right.
So
Well,
it's a hard place to be in.
It depends on who the judge is.
Yeah.
It depends on who's going to decide the winner of the argument. And when you let the other side define the terms,
Yeah.
everything now is an argument about race.
Yes.
Well, you know what? The fact is, I don't think about race that much.
I don't either.
I just don't.
Yeah.
And there are people on the left, that's all they think
Yeah.
about.
That's what they think.
And if we're going to get in a yelling match, they might win that yelling match because they think about it all.
Right,
I'm not
yeah.
prepping that argument. I don't
You're
spend any
right.
time with
Yeah.
that. So, I have said many times if you look at the priorities of the left for the past 100 years in this country, they have been taking over education, taking over entertainment, and taking over the media.
Yes.
And that is because democracy, and we're going to get emails saying we're a republic. I know. Every time. I know we're a republic. Democracy, just little geek democracy, okay? Only functions well when you have an informed electorate capable of critical thinking.
Yeah.
So you take over entertainment and the media, they're not informed anymore. You take over education, they're not capable of critical thinking anymore because they haven't been taught to do it. And those are the people now judging the merits of these arguments.
Yeah.
And,
great
good luck.
point.
And so that's why I think the most important things that conservatives can do, that the right can do, is focus on those areas: entertainment, the media, that'd be us, and on education. Those are the areas that I'm most passionate about. And you'll see Western Journal cover those areas at length because they're important. They are whatever anybody else says. They are the forefront of the culture war.
Yeah.
Those areas. All right, thank you, Deborah. That was very good. But speaking of shutting down debate, there's no better way to do that than with an executive order. Forget about debate, forget about discussion, forget about name calling, forget about anything except signing your name to a piece of paper and making it happen. We just saw a recent example of that, Joey, in Louisiana.
Yeah, another industry is on the chopping block thanks to
Thanks, Joe.
I like calling him Emperor Joe Biden
Yeah.
because of his executive orders. He is essentially an emperor. I mean, he has issued more executive orders at this point in his presidency than I think like his 6 predecessors.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So if you guys remember, one of Biden's first acts was canceling the Keystone Pipeline.
Right.
And it was something like over 10,000 jobs
Yep.
impacted by that. And then
10,000 jobs that matter. Then there were like
Yes.
2,000 Canadians. So. Yeah. Also that.
And then
I'm going to get emails. I'm going to get emails.
sorry,
They don't even
our
have-
Canadian listeners.
I don't think he
I don't-
is too upset with us. I think we only have one. He knows I'm joking.
So
Yeah, he's cool.
then there was another order that flew under the radar. We talked about it on this show, which was the mine in Arizona
yeah.
being canceled.
That was an hour's drive from here.
Yeah,
Right around our corner.
right.
Yeah.
And that got almost no national media coverage. The only reason we knew about it was because our governor issued a statement.
Right.
But now we have a similar situation to that, where Biden has issued an order that has completely flown under the radar. I happened to find this on a local news source from Louisiana. No national media
they're the
other
ones
than
who
us.
care.
Yeah, no one other than us has covered this. If you guys remember, Biden issued, it was a 60-day ban on new oil and gas leases.
Right.
In, I think, throughout the whole country. It includes offshore and within, on land in the United
Yeah, and
States.
all federal,
Yeah.
federal land.
All federal land, yeah.
land, I believe. Yeah.
So, Biden had just canceled a planned sale of an 80 million acre oil lease in Louisiana. The Gulf of Mexico supports something like 500,000 jobs in the
Wow.
United
Yeah,
States.
yeah,
it's
it's huge.
massive and high paying jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just in Louisiana
High-paying
alone,
union jobs for the
yes,
most part.
right. And so the unions are getting screwed again.
Again.
But in Louisiana alone, it's 250,000 jobs. And there are people waiting for this oil and gas lease because they know it's going to bring high-paying jobs. And Biden, with the stroke of a pen, destroyed jobs once again. And he is threatening an entire industry.
Yeah.
Not just
I'm
a few
sure
jobs.
They can
And
go
it-
make solar panels.
Right,
Joey.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know what
Yeah,
you're
go make
concerned
solar
about.
panels.
They'll be fine.
What
They've made poor choices. Getting
Yes,
into
yeah,
the oil
right,
and
yeah,
gas
yeah.
industry.
those dumb union workers?
exactly.
Yeah.
They were dumb enough to vote for Biden. How
Right.
smart can they be?
So what's really shocking about this one is not only does it just threaten jobs, but it's the fact that it's threatening an entire industry.
Right.
Louisiana, unfortunately, is one of the poorest states in America. The per capita income is really low. People are not very educated. Not saying anything bad about the people.
Sure.
It's how the state's run. So to think about what 250,000 jobs lost in Louisiana would be like
It's a
for
huge
them.
impact.
Yeah.
It's a huge impact. I mean, you could destroy the state. Tax revenue loss, funding for schools lost, infrastructure. The state could crumble. And Biden does that with a pen.
Oh, yeah. He couldn't care less.
Yeah. And so, what do you guys think about this? I mean, what is next? What's coming? Where does this end?
Unfortunately, it's just very consistent for Joe Biden at this point, based on what we've seen, obviously with the Keystone Pipeline and what happened with the mine in Arizona. It's just, it's all very consistent, and it's very sad that this is the reputation that he's building as an incoming president, is somebody that is killing jobs. And, Biden, one of his huge campaign platform points was that he was going to create 10 million clean energy jobs. And so, you could look back at this and you could say, well, Biden is doing all this because he cares about the environment, because he wants to create all these clean energy jobs for Americans. So this is a good thing. But then when you think about it, I mean, to your point, Joey, it is a huge industry that so many people have been involved in for years.
Right.
I mean, some of these people, their parents have been in the oil industry for years, and it's just been kind of a generational thing. And so when you think about that, and when you think about how much America is invested in this industry and how many people's lives are impacted because of it. And then you look at the fact that Biden doesn't have 10 clean energy jobs lined up for these people after they get fired.
Right.
He has nothing for them. And so, if Joe Biden really wants to stop the unemployment rate from going up, he's got to stop contributing to it.
Yeah, I'd say welcome to another episode of Stupid or Evil with your host, George Upper. Either Joe Biden is unaware of the poverty and dependence that he is creating with these orders, and therefore stupid, because it's pretty obvious, or he wants to create poverty and dependency because he feels that's a winning strategy for Democrats, or at least a winning strategy for bigger government, right? Make people dependent. They call on government for help. And so you decide, is he really so dumb as to think this is a good plan for anyone, or is he so stupid as to be able to be manipulated into that by other people? That would be another possibility. Or is he just evil and he wants to create suffering because he thinks it's good for him and his party and for the big government folks on the left? You decide.
And I think one thing, and I kind of touch on this, that's especially alarming about this, is the fact that no one is covering this. Americans aren't aware that this is happening.
Yeah.
No one knows. Biden and the media is so on the side of Democrats that they let Biden fly under the radar, cut jobs, destroy industries, and he gets away with it
And
with no
welcome
consequences.
to another episode of Stupid or Evil. Is the American media stupid and they don't think this is a story? Or are they evil? And they think it is, and therefore they're not covering it.
Well, because all of us, I'm sure, have been affected by gas prices skyrocketing.
Sure.
And so far, there's debate about how much responsibility Biden bears on this and how much responsibility the president bears on this. But there is no doubt that if the oil and gas industry is eliminated in the Gulf of Mexico, you can say goodbye to probably under $5 a gallon gas prices.
And that's before they tax it.
Right. And so I think Republicans have an opportunity here. We need to message to these people. What should our message be to these people who have been displaced by Emperor Joe Biden?
I think one that is probably going to work the best is to say, this man is not who he says he is. This man claimed that he was going to unite the nation, that he was the man of democracy, that he was a man of the people. And that's not what his actions have shown up until this point. And so I think that our messaging really needs to be, this is what he's done that's working against the people. This is what we need to do moving forward to work for the people. And Joe Biden's just not the guy to do that.
Yeah, I can almost see the meme in my head. Here's what Joe Biden said was important to him.
Yeah.
Here's the effects of his actions. Come on, man. I can just see it. It's the disconnect, regardless of how well intentioned the man is. And true, I do the stupid or evil grift regularly. But I like to think the best of people. I like to think that most people wake up and they don't say, how many people can I impoverish today?
Right.
They really truly believe, well, if I do this thing, everyone's going to be better off. And they're wrong. So, slanting towards stupid versus evil. But if I ignore the pattern, I'm 52 years old. And if I ignore that pattern until I'm 72 years old, you guys will need to be asking whether I'm stupid or evil. Because that pattern is pretty consistent, right? I mean, you can ask that now if you want, but I like to think there's a third option. I want to give Joe Biden, I want to give grace to everybody.
Yeah.
Because I know how desperately I need grace.
Yeah. Right.
The fact is, I am stupid and I am evil. I do dumb things and I'm selfish and self-motivated, just like everyone else on the planet. So yeah, the stupid or evil, it is a grift. It's also a theological truth, at least to me.
Yeah.
That's the human condition. We are all, sort of suffering under ignorance and delusion.
Yeah.
And Bible says the heart of man is evil beyond all things. Who can understand it? So we do evil and we think we're doing good, and that's true on both sides of the aisle. It's true of everybody. I can sit here right now as I say this and think about a good friend that I hurt doing what I thought was the right thing, and in retrospect, it's like, oh, that was really stupid, George. I meant the best for the guy,
right?
And I mean, right now, I'm thinking of a very specific example of that. So, people can have good intentions and still destroy lives, just literally destroy lives. And I think that's what I like. It's kind of sad to say it. I like to think that Joe Biden is destroying lives with fairly innocent motivations, but time will tell, I guess. But I think, to your point, or to your question, I think the messaging is just that. It doesn't matter what your intentions are.
Yeah.
You can say these words all day long. Just like, if I could tell you guys, hey, great job, everyone. Raise is coming soon. Raise is coming soon. And 3 years from now, you should be going stupid or evil. Did he really think the raises were coming? Because I haven't seen a raise yet. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's not, the words matter. It's not that they don't matter, but they don't matter anywhere near as much as what people do.
Yeah.
Right.
And what Joe Biden is doing is not good for the country. And I can only hope, I guess, that he wakes up one day and realizes that. The other message that I would say that we need to give is that people should be subscribing to Western Journal Live, to WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal on YouTube, to be continually informed of this kind of information. If you're not watching us on YouTube, I invite you to go there. We're easy to find, youtube.com/WJ Live. Click the subscribe button, click that bell next to it so you're notified of every time that a new episode appears. That was a really smooth transition.
It was.
Very good.
Very nice.
Very impressed.
Yeah, thank you. Our producer loves it when I point out my smooth transitions. That's like her favorite thing. No, but do subscribe. We need you to. It encourages us for one thing, but we also know, just looking at the numbers, which we look at every week, that there's a bunch of you out there who watch us, listen to us on audio podcast, haven't subscribed. And those subscriptions really help us. They help us get this information out to you. So please do that for us. We appreciate you very much being here to share these few minutes with us. We will be back again tomorrow, and then we'll be back starting next week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific. And keep an eye on us because we've got more good changes coming your way very soon. Until then, thank you for being here. Stay safe. Take care.
Exposition, which is essentially a world fair.
Time to go.
And she was also historic.
Oh, they got an audio version too.
And she was also historic for being the first kind of living trademark of the advertising